The cabin door slammed shut behind me before I could arrange my next step. Mud spattered across my boots as I jerked the torchlight upward, its beam quivered over rows of unlit candles strewn in haphazard spirals. A box of anniversary gifts lay overturned on the floor, ribbons unraveled like wounded ribbons of color. Rain pounded the roof in relentless sheets, each drop a hammer against the glass. I didn't pause to question how the door had closed, nor why the gifts lay discarded. My hand flew to my chest as my phone buzzed in my pocket. I fished it out, fingertips slick with sweat and storm water. Your wife was with him last night. No number. No name. Just that text, imprinted in stark white letters on black. Lightning flared through the window, illuminating rose petals scattered like flotsam across the hearth. My heart slammed against my ribs. I exhaled so sharply that the torchlight wavered. All I could hear was the storm's fury, the distant highway's muted hum, and the frantic hammer of my own pulse. I forced my feet to move, stepping over broken gift wrap toward the knot of candles in the center of the room. They were arranged in the shape of a heart, my gesture of devotion, dissolved by someone else's betrayal. My reflection shimmered in the window, rain-streaked and hollow-eyed. I pressed my palm to the glass. Below it, my wedding photo lay face down, silver frame glinting like a challenge. Stay calm. I dropped the phone onto a nearby crate, slamming the lid shut. No more distractions. No more messages to shred what remained of my resolve. I inhaled, counting to 5 against the thunder's roll. When I exhaled, I set my jaw and reached for the locket I'd tucked into my pocket that morning, a tiny clock face enclosing her younger smile. Not here. Not now. The faint metallic tang of leftover coffee lingered in the air, a reminder of the breakfast I'd abandoned in my rush to escape the city's gridlock. My truck idled on the muddy driveway, headlights still cutting a tunnel through the trees. I strode back outside, the wind tearing at my coat as if to reveal my intentions. Under the storm's wrath, I returned to the driver's seat and killed the engine. In the fleeting silence that followed, I dialed my brother's number. Each ring felt like a pulse echoing in my skull until his gravelly voice answered. "Did you make it inside?" he asked, concern threading his words. "I'm here," I said, voice low and steady despite the adrenaline roaring in my ears. "But she isn't." He cleared his throat. "Hold tight. I'll arrange a safe house down the road. We'll sort this out." I ended the call and stood in the cab, head bowed to the scattering of candlelight through the rain-speckled windshield. My thoughts raced, not with despair, but with purpose. Evidence folders I hadn't yet organized, attorney numbers I hadn't yet dialed, they all pooled at the edge of my consciousness, waiting. Back inside the cabin, I crossed to the hearth and righted the photo frame, flipping it face up. Our smile stared back at me, frozen in a golden afternoon of long ago. I picked it up and carried it to the far end of the room, placing it gently on a wooden shelf. Then I knelt beside the gift box, gathering each scattered present and restacking them with precise care. The cashmere scarves, the inscribed novel, the silver locket, every item returned to its proper place, every detail preserved for later. I paused when my fingers brushed a ribbon, eyes flicking to the open door that framed the storm outside. This place will witness more than celebration. I pocketed the locket and stepped outside once more, sealing the door behind me with a decisive click. The mountains loomed in the darkness, silent sentinels to my fury. Lightning arced overhead as I made for my truck. Rain washed the rose petals from the cabin steps, sweeping them into the mud like broken promises. I slid into the driver's seat and lifted the torchlight from the dash. Its beam cut through the downpour, guiding me back into motion. My heart still thundered, but now in time with something quieter, a steely resolve that steadied each breath. The storm raged on, but inside me, something had settled. This was no longer about shock or grief. It was about action. And the path ahead, no matter how dark, was lit by the cold flame of justice. I remember the first time she surprised me with vinyl records. It was a crisp autumn evening at our cramped city apartment, leaves skittering across the pavement like golden coins. I opened the door to find our living room transformed into a makeshift record store, stacks of albums strewn atop our battered coffee table, fairy lights draped over the bookshelves. She grinned, holding up my favorite Miles Davis pressing. "For us," she said, and I thought nothing could be more perfect. That moment washed over me now as I sat in a roadside motel, rain still hammering the roof. My mind flicked through our history: Saturday morning pancakes, her hair tousled in bed, the time we repainted the nursery a soft gray, the ritual of Sunday hikes, her flashlight bobbing like a firefly in the pre-dawn mist. I closed my eyes and inhaled, as if I could recapture the comforting weight of her arm around me. But then the edges blurred. The late-night work calls she claimed were urgent, overheard snippets of laughter when I slipped out of our bedroom for a glass of water. The stray scent of her vanilla perfume clinging to my favorite jacket, long after I last wore it. And the receipts, the little hotel charges I shrugged off as business travel, the coffee shop tabs at 2 a.m. that she'd dismissed as insomnia-fueled cravings. I had folded each anomaly into a tidy box labeled, "Nothing to worry about." Now, as I scrawled notes across a legal pad, those details felt like shards of broken glass under my skin. I flipped open her phone, bypassing the passcode I once hesitated to override, and scrolled through messages. Most were innocuous: group chats, grocery lists, parenting reminders. But sprinkled between were references to late-night meetups, hidden agendas, and a name I didn't recognize. My thumb hovered over a thread from M, time-stamped at 3:12 a.m., but I forced myself to wait. Instead, I dialed our mutual friend Lisa, the one I trusted with everything. Her voice was hesitant. I didn't want to believe it, she confessed. But I saw her last month, slipping into that motel off Maple. She looked guilty, like she knew someone was watching. My fingers tightened on the pen until the tip scratched the paper. Motel off Maple. My stomach knotted. I drove past that dingy neon sign countless times on my commute. I thought of the night I found the duplicate key in the laundry, brass and worn, identical to our front door set. It lay beneath her gym clothes, hidden as if ashamed. She claimed a locksmith had given her a spare. I nodded and moved on. I thought of the voicemail from a number I didn't save, breathy laughter, a hushed, "Can't wait to see you again," then a click. I assumed a colleague with a flirtatious streak. My brother always said men choose convenience over confrontation. I had chosen convenience, preferred blind trust to ugly truths. But trust now felt like a shackle. I tapped her bank statements, downloaded PDF after PDF, charges at boutique hotels, midweek restaurant tabs for two, late fees at an after-hours dry cleaner. Each line item was a pulse in the ledger of betrayal, and I recorded them all. The dawn crept through the blinds as I forced myself to replay our last week together. The anniversary dinner at that candlelit bistro, she tasted the tiramisu but smiled too brightly at her phone. The way she touched my arm and then withdrew it as if startled. The laundry basket she carried upstairs, the overloaded bulge of black gym shorts beneath my children's clothes. I should have asked. I didn't. I stood in the bathroom mirror of the motel, face gaunt beneath fluorescent light, and splashed cold water on my cheeks. My reflection stared back, haggard, determined. The man here was different from the one who'd tiptoed past her bedside at dawn, hesitant to wake her with coffee in hand. This version had sharpened edges, notebooks brimming with evidence, legal numbers scrawled in the margin, a plan forming in his bones. When Lisa called again that afternoon, I was ready. "Tell me everything," I said, voice level. She listed dates, addresses, snippets of overheard conversations. I sketched a timeline: early March, late April, just before our anniversary. Each rendezvous fit neatly into empty slots on my calendar, holes I'd never noticed until I started looking. I packed her phone away, handed it to my brother for safekeeping, and wiped the slate clean, no accidental deletions, no misinterpretations. The evidence had to be pristine. I collected printed screenshots of messages, filed bank statements in clear plastic sleeves, and loaded CCTV footage from our home security into a secure folder. Everything was logged, stamped, and double-checked. By nightfall, I stared at the wall of my makeshift command center, a hotel desk littered with color-coded sticky notes, photographs, and a timeline stretching from March to October. I tapped a note labeled, "Candlelight Dinner, October 12th, and traced the line back to a receipt for 2 coffees at 11:47 a.m. 3 days earlier. I allowed myself a grim smile. I had been slow, but I was thorough. Memories still pained me, her laugh, the warmth in her eyes, but I no longer let them cloud my vision. Those recollections had become evidence, joyful snapshots reframed by doubt, each memory a clue to her secret life. I reached for my phone and typed one word into the search bar: anniversary. The first result was my own text to her that morning: "I can't wait to celebrate with you tonight." Beneath it, a slew of messages I never saw. I closed my eyes, pressed my forehead to the cool motel window, and sighed. The storm outside had passed, leaving behind a silent sky. But inside me, everything was in motion. The past had revealed its fissures, and I had traced each crack. Now, with the evidence in hand and the timeline laid bare, I could finally move forward, no longer a man blinded by love, but one empowered by certainty. I awakened that morning with the locket's cool weight against my chest, its tiny clock face ticking in rhythm with my pulse. The betrayal had shifted from raw pain to something I could measure, compartmentalize, and ultimately conquer. I slid out of bed in the sterile light of my brother's guest room and reached for my legal pad, today's agenda scrawled in neat, deliberate capitals: consult attorney, preserve evidence, install cameras, draft custody proposal, asset inventory, counselor session. 8:15 a.m., attorney's office. The lobby smelled of polished wood and fresh coffee. My brother, Michael, greeted me with a nod and a thick manila folder stamped confidential. We settled into leather chairs. His expression was solemn, his pen ready. "We need chronology first," he said, tapping the folder. "I've lined up the dates," I replied, spreading printed bank statements, screenshots of messages, and time-stamped hotel receipts across the table. Each sheet was secured in a clear sleeve, edged neatly in purple ink. He reviewed every document, murmuring pointers: chain of custody, here; foundation for financial claims, here. You'll need notarized affidavits from Lisa and the motel clerk. Also, family court requires clear evidence of willful abandonment. We plotted the timeline on a whiteboard: March's Sunday brunch incident, June's unexplained gym sessions, last night's cabin debacle. By the time I left his office, I had my first set of action items: notarize affidavits by Thursday, arrange financial expert consultation for next week, and draft initial custody terms by Monday. 10:30 a.m., notary public. At the notary, I signed statements regarding the hotel charges and my sister's sworn testimony about overheard phone calls. The notary's stamp felt satisfying, a tangible seal on my case. I pocketed the notarized pages and checked off my list. 12 p.m., lunch with my friend, Carla, a longtime confidant, met me at a quiet cafe. She slid across a surveillance camera catalog and my brother's notes. "You're overthinking custody," she teased, but her eyes were serious. "I'd rather overprepare than underdeliver," I said. We sketched asset division drafts on napkins: the cabin, the SUV, joint investment accounts. I explained my rationale: her Volvo to her, my truck to me, the mountain property awarded to me given her intent to abandon, equal split of retirement funds to avoid future disputes. Carla flagged possible tax implications and suggested a forensic accountant. 3 p.m., security camera installation. Back at home, now more crime scene than sanctuary, I met with the technician. Cameras were mounted discreetly in the hallway, overlooking the front door and living room. Each lens was angled to capture movement but concealed from casual view. I watched as wires snaked into the ceiling, feeding into a locked DVR box labeled evidence. "You ever use cameras like this?" the tech asked. "First time," I admitted, the word crisp. "But I need every angle documented." The final camera clicked into position. I tested the feed on my phone, live stream crystal clear, then secured the DVR behind a code-protected panel. Every step bolstered my confidence: betrayal may be hidden, but evidence could never lie. 5:30 p.m., drafting custody proposal. I returned to my makeshift command center, a corner of the dining room transformed into a war room. Post-it notes in blue, green, and red created a color-coded custody calendar: weeknights with me, weekends alternating, holidays meticulously defined. I drafted clear visitation guidelines: written notice for travel, video calls during her custody weeks, primary school enrollment decisions to remain joint until final hearing. I typed and retyped the document until each clause was bulletproof: the father shall have primary residential custody, mother entitled to supervised visitation pending her compliance with counseling requirements. Each keystroke was deliberate, each sentence an affirmation of my resolve. 7 p.m., counseling session. I sat across from Dr. Nguyen, who had guided me through the initial shock. Today's topic: channeling anger into productive action. She nodded as I detailed my progress: the affidavits, the cameras, the custody draft. "Revenge without structure is chaos," she observed. "I'm building order," I replied. She praised my methodical approach but cautioned against obsession: keep perspective. You're fighting for your daughter's well-being and your future, not just retribution. I acknowledged her point, but in my gut, I knew structure was both my shield and sword. 9 p.m. Asset inventory and negotiation prep. Back at home, I compiled a spreadsheet of every shared asset, real estate parcels, vehicles, joint accounts, insurance policies. Columns specified my proposed splits, legal justifications, and anticipated pushback. I drafted a negotiation outline: opening concession, her favorite jewelry set, critical non-negotiables, full ownership of the cabin, and fallback positions. I printed copies, slid them into another manila folder labeled negotiations, and placed it next to my bed. Beneath it lay the locket, its clock face gleaming in the lamplight, a reminder that time, once lost, could be reclaimed. 11 p.m. Final reflection. I stood by the window, gazing at the moonlit mountains. The storm had long since passed. My reflection in the glass was calm, unbroken. In these past days, I had transformed pain into purpose, each notarized affidavit, each camera feed, each custody clause a step toward justice. Tomorrow, I would reconvene with my brother to finalize court filings. I would forward the camera footage to my attorney. I would send Carla the spreadsheet for her accountant's review. And through it all, the locket would remain close, its ticking a steady metronome marking my progress from devastation to empowerment. I closed my eyes and whispered, on my terms. With that vow, I turned off the desk lamp and let the darkness settle. The night was mine, ordered, structured, ready for whatever came next. The fluorescent lights in the attorney's conference room hummed overhead as I slipped in, carrying a slim dossier and the tarnished silver wedding photo frame. She was already there, seated beside our divorce attorney's polished oak desk, posture rigid, eyes rimmed with fatigue. Her hands clenched the fabric of her skirt. I placed the photo gently on the desk, face down, and then set the small brass key to the cabin beside it. The key's worn ridges caught the light like a verdict. My heart thudded, not with panic, but with a measured certainty. "Do you recognize this?" I asked, voice low. She glanced down, then at me, confusion flickering. "It's our anniversary photo," she began. "Face down now," I said, tapping its back. "Because you stopped valuing what we built." Our attorney, a stern woman in her 50s with cropped hair and wire-rimmed glasses, cleared her throat. "Mr. Lawson has presented full evidence of abandonment and infidelity," she said, nodding to me. "Would you like to begin?" I opened the dossier. The first page was a timeline: March 14th, hotel stay, April 22nd, gym key duplicated, October 12th, cabin visit. Each entry had documentary evidence attached: bank statements, text transcripts, notarized affidavits. I slid the folder toward her. "These are my dates," I said, voice steady. "This is where you were supposed to be with me, but you chose him." She looked down, eyes darting across the pages. I watched as color drained from her cheeks. I don't know what to say," she whispered, voice brittle. "You don't have to," I replied. "The records speak for themselves." I paused, letting silence stretch. The only sound was the soft click of the key against the table when I nudged it. "This key," I said, lifting it with fingertip precision, "unlocked our mountain refuge, my surprise for our 15th anniversary. Instead, it unlocked your secret life." Her lips trembled. She glanced at the key, then at the wedding photo, still upside down. She began, but I cut her off gently. "No more excuses. No more apologies without action." I closed the dossier and slid it back. "I want full custody," I stated, looking her in the eye. "I want the cabin and the SUV. I want the assets divided as per my proposal." She swallowed. The attorney leaned forward. "Those terms are reasonable, given the evidence," she said to my ex. Tears spilled down her cheeks. She nodded, voice cracking. "I accept." I felt a muted release, like air leaving a balloon. My pulse slowed. I slid the wedding photo upright. Its image, us smiling beneath golden sunlight, seemed to tilt at an angle, as if acknowledging the shift in power. "We had good years," I said softly, "but nothing holds value when trust is broken." She didn't respond. The attorney cleared her throat again, signaling the formal paperwork. I watched her sign, each stroke a line in our final chapter together. When the documents were complete, I stood and gathered my folders. The attorney offered a curt nod. I turned to her once more. "I wish you well," I said, quiet, sincere. She lowered her gaze. I stepped around the desk, lifting the brass key from the table. In that moment, I felt the cabin key transform, once a symbol of love, now a certification of my reclamation. I clicked it in my palm, its ridges familiar and final. Outside, the autumn air was crisp. I pocketed the key, folders in hand, and walked away without looking back. The weight I felt wasn't sorrow, it was something steadier, resolution. The morning air was crisp as I stepped out of the courthouse, folders tucked under my arm and the brass cabin key heavy in my pocket. The settlement papers lay neatly stacked in my briefcase, full custody awarded, the mountain cabin and SUV under my sole ownership, assets divided according to the precise terms I drafted. Each clause represented a milepost on my journey from betrayal to empowerment. My daughter ran into my arms, her small face bright with relief. "Daddy," she whispered, "are we really going home now?" I knelt to meet her, smoothing back her hair and feeling the locket's cool weight against my chest. The clock face inside, a recurring reminder, ticked steadily, marking both time lost and time reclaimed. At the cabin that afternoon, I walked through the door alone, the floorboards creaking underfoot. Candles still lined the mantel from the aborted anniversary, beeswax pillars in spirals, their wicks unlit. I placed the tarnished wedding photo beside them, face up this time, the smiles frozen in sepia, a ghostly echo of what once was. Then I hung the brass key on the worn hook by the door, a silent testament to ownership rather than union. I unpacked the gifts I'd once intended for her, the cashmere scarves, the inscribed novel, the silver clockwork locket. One by one, I boxed them, labeling each gift returned. As I folded the scarves, I acknowledged the warmth they once symbolized and released it. The locket, however, I left open on the mantel, its ticking a reminder that time, like justice, moves forward. That evening, I sat at the cabin's wooden desk and opened my laptop. I had reserved the domain, calculatedreckoning.com, weeks ago, and now, with the final signatures drying, I began my first post. Titled, "The Anatomy of Betrayal," it laid out my journey, the shock of that anonymous text, the meticulous gathering of evidence, and the courtroom showdown. Each section ended with practical takeaways: how to document infidelity, steps to secure legal evidence, and strategies to regulate emotion through structured action. As I typed, my daughter drew quietly beside me, coloring inside the lines of a mountainscape sketch. Every so often, she'd look up and smile, a gesture more powerful than any candlelit surprise. The photograph on the mantel reflected back at me, and I allowed myself a small, genuine smile. The man I'd been before, naive, trusting, was gone. In his place stood someone tempered by reason and resilience. Night fell outside, and the cabin clock chimed 9 times, its resonance filling the room. I closed the locket to stop its ticking and placed it on the desk beside my notebook. Tomorrow, I would file more resources on my blog, interviews with legal experts, templates for affidavits, and forums for others facing similar betrayals. I leaned back in the chair and watched the last glow of sunset fade behind the pines. The horizon was clear, unbroken. My path lay ahead, no longer dictated by heartbreak, but chosen by deliberate resolve. In that moment, I felt the final flicker of my old life extinguish, replaced by a steady flame of purpose. The clock had turned. My future was mine to write.